There are humiliations that burn worse than any physical wound, and mine started with a phrase thrown like pure poison straight to the heart. Get out of my sight. You're not even fit to be here. That's what my wife told me, a woman born bathed in money who had never had to work a single day in her life to get a glass of water. In that instant, as she raised her eyebrow with that disdain she had perfected over years, I, Humberto, understood something I had denied for a long time. I wasn't married to a person. I was married to a mirror of arrogance. What she didn't imagine in that moment of pride was that her famous week without me, that punishment she devised to make me suffer, would be the last time she would have control over my life. And that, upon her return, the submissive man she knew would have disappeared forever. If anyone has ever humiliated you for not having money, for your humble origins, or for your prudent silence, stay. This story will shake you to your bones. Like, comment which country you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories where justice isn't waited for, it's executed with divine precision. I was never rich. I come from a family where bread was earned with the sweat of the brow and where a word was worth more than a signed contract. I was always a hardworking, honest man with unwavering principles. My wife, Letitia, was the complete opposite. She was born with a silver spoon in her mouth, into a family that knew nothing but privileges, titles, hyphenated last names, and high-level contacts. We met because I worked as a junior accounting assistant at her father's company. It was my first important job. She, used to getting everything she wanted with a snap of her fingers, decided one day that I would be her charity project. At first, in my youthful naivety, I thought it was love. I thought she saw something special, something pure in me. Later I understood it was just ego. I was her pet, the poor man she rescued. During the first months of dating and the first year of marriage, our differences seemed small, almost romantic. She spent more on a dinner than I could earn in a month, but I made an effort. I worked day and night. I wanted to feel like I belonged in her world. I wanted to prove to her, and to her family who always looked at me with suspicion, that I was worth much more than my salary. I wanted to be worthy. But her arrogance didn't diminish over time. It grew like mold on a damp wall. The way she spoke to me changed subtly. She stopped asking for things with affection, and started ordering them as if I were a domestic servant. She stopped saying please, and started saying, you should be grateful to be here. Every day was a small lost battle. A look of disapproval at my clothes. A sarcastic comment about my family. A mocking laugh when I tried to give an opinion on finances. Until the day arrived that changed everything. The day the straw broke the camel's back and the dam of my patience burst. It was a Friday night. Letitia had a craving for dinner at The Emperor, the most expensive and exclusive restaurant downtown, a place where only high-level executives, politicians, and heirs entered. I had just come out of a brutally heavy week at work. I had been doing audits, reviewing numbers until my eyes burned. I was exhausted, physically and mentally. I just wanted a break. A quiet night, maybe a pizza at home, a movie. Something normal. I told her, with all the gentleness in the world, that I felt tired. She turned to me, adjusting a diamond earring in front of the mirror, with that tone that froze the blood. Tired? Tired of what, Humberto? Since you're not even anyone important. You don't manage anything. You just push papers. Don't be ridiculous and change those clothes. I'm not going alone. I remained silent. Sometimes silence is the only thing left for those who are not heard. I put on my best suit, which next to hers looked like a rag, and accompanied her. When we arrived at the restaurant, the luxury hit us in the face. Sports cars, uniformed valet parking, dim lights. The valets rushed to the luxury cars arriving before us. But when my turn came, with my simple car, an economy model from 5 years ago, one of the valet guys hesitated. He looked at me, looked at the car, and then looked at the other employees as if asking if it was worth opening the door. Letitia noticed. And instead of defending me, instead of demanding respect for her husband, she laughed. A crystalline and cruel laugh. She rolled down the window and told the boy, relax, boy. He's nobody important. You can let him park his own car. He's not used to being served. The employees laughed. The customers entering looked at us with that mix of pity and mockery. I felt something break inside me. It wasn't a loud noise. It was like glass cracking in silence. Something I myself had ignored for years became evident. The illusion that she had ever loved me vanished. There, in that parking lot, under the neon lights, I understood that for her I wasn't a partner. I was a cheap accessory. That night, dinner was a silent hell. She talked on the phone, ignoring me. I ate without tasting. After a silent fight all the way back, upon entering the house, she exploded. She couldn't stand my silence. She wanted submission, not dignity. Enough, Humberto. She shouted, throwing her purse on the sofa. I'm sick of your victim face. Get out of my sight. Get out. I give you a week without me, so you understand your place. So you see how miserable your life is without my money and without my last name. I looked at her, stunned. A week for what? I asked. So you learn, she replied, bringing her face close to mine with eyes full of fury. So you learn that I'm doing you a favor by being with you. I don't want to see you for a week. She went to her room, packed a small suitcase, and left straight for her best friend's house, the one who always looked at me with disgust. She left me alone in the huge and cold house. But what she didn't know, what her arrogance prevented her from seeing, was that she wasn't punishing me. She was setting me free. That night I didn't sleep. I spent hours sitting on the sofa, staring at the wall, my mind blank at first, and then racing at 1,000 miles an hour. I wondered how I had reached this point, how I had allowed myself to be trampled on like this. My hands were shaking. Not from fear. From rage. From a disappointment so deep it burned. From a tiredness accumulated over years of being the husband of. And then I understood. It was a revelation clear as water. I didn't need a week without her. I needed a life without her. And not just that. I needed justice. Not revenge for emotional pain. But justice for dignity. I needed to balance the scales. My mind flew back. Days earlier, while working in the deep archives of her father's company, I had discovered something strange. I was a meticulous accountant. I liked numbers to square to the penny. And I had noticed discrepancies. Patterns. There was enormous tax evasion. But not just any evasion. It was made up in internal documents, disguised as operating losses and donations to phantom foundations. It wasn't an administrative error. It was a federal crime. It was money laundering and large-scale tax fraud. And then my mind started working. It was no longer the mind of the humiliated husband. It was the mind of the auditor. Slow, precise, cold. I wasn't rich. I didn't have power. But I knew every accounting move of the family business. I had the keys to the kingdom, and their arrogance of believing I was a simple dumb employee had given me access to everything. I knew exactly where to strike for the building to come down. I spent the entire week, that punishment week, working like never before. I didn't leave the house. I gathered evidence. I copied hard drives. I photographed secret accounting books her father kept in the office safe, the combination of which I knew because he was too lazy to open it himself. I saved incriminating emails. The more I read, the clearer the map became. My wife's family, those who looked at me with disgust, had built their empire on lies. On theft. On fraud. They lived in houses of cards, and I had just found the wind. Exactly 7 days later, my wife returned. She walked in as if nothing had happened, expecting to find me crying, dirty, desperate for her forgiveness, ready to kneel. She walked in, left her purse on the table, looked at me with that usual superiority, and said, "Well, I hope you learned your lesson, Humberto. I hope you missed the good life." I was sitting in the armchair, dressed impeccably, with a suitcase beside me. I looked at her calmly, with a peace that deeply irritated her. There was no fear in my eyes. "Yes," I replied with a firm voice. "I learned quite a lot." "Oh yeah?" She scoffed. "What? That you're nothing without me?" "Oh. I learned that I am worth more away from you than by your side. And I learned that your family is not untouchable." She laughed with contempt, a nervous laugh this time. "Humberto, please. Without me, you are nothing. You are a zero on the left." I took a deep breath. I stood up, and with a smile she had never seen on my face, a smile of someone holding the ace of spades, I replied, "That is precisely the lie that ends today, Letitia." That same afternoon, as soon as I left the house, I sent the tax evidence to the Ministry of Finance. An anonymous package, but with details only someone on the inside could know. And I didn't stop there. I also leaked key documents to a local investigative journalist who had been trying to uncover a corruption scandal in the city for months but lacked the evidence. I gave him everything. My wife found out 2 days later. She was at home when her phone started ringing nonstop. Then the house phone. Then the doorbell. "What did you do?" She screamed hysterically, entering the living room with eyes full of fury and tears, holding the local newspaper. "Humberto, the police are in Dad's office. They are raiding the company. They say there is an informant." I was finishing packing my last books. I looked at her calmly. "The truth, Letitia. I did what I had to do. The truth always comes to light." Her family's empire began to fall like dominoes, piece by piece, hour after hour. First, the frozen accounts. The bank, facing the federal investigation, blocked all access to money. Then the forced audits. Men in gray suits entered and took out boxes and boxes of evidence. The export blockade paralyzed the business. The cancellation of millionaire contracts with foreign partners who didn't want to be involved in a scandal. The public investigations. And the greatest humiliation of all, her last name, that sacred and untouchable last name, appeared on all the country's news programs, associated with the words fraud, jail, and theft. My wife cried, screamed, insulted me, threatened me with the best lawyers in the country. But she didn't deny anything. She knew it was true. And she knew I had copies of everything. In less than 3 weeks, the family went from being millionaires to being debtors. The fall was resounding. Her father was removed from his own company and faced a trial that would surely end in prison. Her mother, the great society lady, lost the presidency of the charity council due to the scandal. Friends turned their backs on her. Her brothers had to sell properties, cars, and yachts at fire sale prices to try to pay bail and fines. But the worst for Letitia was discovering that her untouchable reputation was destroyed in 24 hours. She was no longer the successful heiress. She was the scammer's daughter. The society that flattered her so much now spat on her. And there, in the midst of absolute chaos, when she realized her credit cards were no longer working and her friends weren't answering the phone, she tried to cling to the only thing she had left. To the only person who had always been there. She came looking for me at the small apartment I had rented. She was gaunt, without makeup, dressed in simple clothes. Humberto, her voice trembled. Love, please. We can fix it. Take back what you said. Say you were wrong. Dad could go to jail. They're going to take the house away. I looked at her from the door, not letting her in. No, I said dryly. What do you mean no? I'm your wife. You can't fix something that never existed, Letitia. Our marriage was a farce based on your convenience and my blindness. She knelt. Yes, the woman who laughed at me in the parking lot was now on her knees in the hallway of a cheap building, crying. Forgive me. Please, forgive me. I was wrong. I love you. I promise I'll change. Don't leave me alone in this. I don't know what to do without money. I don't know what to do without you. I looked at her with the same coldness with which she looked at me that night at the restaurant, when she told the valet I was nobody. I remembered every humiliation, every disdain. A week without me, remember? I told her softly. You wanted a week for me to learn my place. Well, now it will be a lifetime. You learn what your place is in the real world, where actions have consequences. And I closed the door. My wife, the woman who mocked me, who publicly humiliated me, who treated my love like trash and my person like a servant, ended up in the same place where she wanted to see me, absolutely alone. Her family never recovered from the scandal. The father was sentenced. The fortune dissolved in fines and debts. She lost friends, status, money, admiration, everything that constituted her identity. She had to start working for the first time in her life, in jobs she previously despised. I gained something I never had by her side. I gained freedom. I gained dignity. I gained peace. Over time, I started my own accounting consulting business. Small and honest. I'm doing well. I'm not a millionaire, but I sleep peacefully every night. I met someone who values me for who I am, not for what I can endure. True justice doesn't always arrive with screams or violence. Sometimes it arrives with silence, with patience, and with the truth as the only sword. And, above all, with the peace that only Jesus can give to a heart that has been wounded. I learned that I didn't need to take revenge with malice. I just needed to let the truth do its work. Because these are stories of revenge, but in real life, forgiveness heals more than any blow. I forgave Letitia in my heart, not for her, but so I wouldn't carry that weight. But forgiving doesn't mean going back. Forgiving is letting go and letting God take care of the rest. Write in the comments, what was the most unfair humiliation you experienced? How did you get up? Subscribe for more stories where justice isn't waited for, it's executed. Where the humble are exalted and arrogance falls under its own weight. And remember, Jesus is returning. Seek God today. Don't wait until you lose everything to realize what really matters. Forgiveness liberates. Truth restores. And God's justice never fails.